Stand on your feet, boy. You can't sit here. Once, when Leon Howard Sullivan was 12, he went to the drugstore to buy a Coca-Cola, and the guy that worked there told him that he couldn't sit down just because he was an African American and that he had to leave. This event led Sullivan to become a lifelong social activist and fight against racial prejudice. Leon Howard Sullivan was born on October 16, 1922, and he became a Baptist minister, a civil rights leader, and social activist who focused on job creation of African Americans, and he also was a well-noted author. Sullivan died on April 24, 2001 of leukemia at 78 years of age. First, I want to tell you about Sullivan's education in his childhood so that you get an idea of where his interests spurred. He went to Garnet High School in Charleston, and he grew up in a really poor neighborhood, and he grew up with divorced parents because his parents divorced when he was only 3. Sullivan had 2 interests as a child. This was religion and sports. His sports interests gained him a scholarship to West Virginia University, where he went on to play football and basketball at the collegiate level. Sullivan ended his athletic career with a foot injury and had to begin working in the steel mill and as a part-time minister. Sullivan's friend and local pastor, Adam Powell, who was also an African American, gave him the right push he needed to begin his real ministry career. This is when Sullivan went to New York City. Sullivan went to New York City and attended Union Theological Seminary for a theology degree and Columbia University for a sociology degree. After he had completed those degrees, Sullivan began his first minister career. He was a minister at the Baptist Church in South Orange, Florida. In the short 5 years that he was minister here, he became president of the South Orange Council of Churches. After the 5 years at this First Baptist Church, Sullivan went on to Zion Baptist Church in Philadelphia. Here in Philadelphia, he began a organization to discourage gang activity among the African American youth in the area. He also, during his time at Zion Baptist in Philadelphia, he also was noted by the U.S. Junior Chamber of Commerce as one of the top 10 young outstanding men in America. Sullivan was also a civil rights leader who focused on African American job creation. In the early 60s, Sullivan joined 400 other ministers in a boycott against big companies who would not hire African Americans. And in 1964, Sullivan organized the Opportunities Industrialization Center, also known as the OIC. The OIC was set up in an abandoned jailhouse, and it was basically to teach African American and other minorities how basic job skills and job training so that they could get a job anywhere. And setting up this program was one of the biggest and well-known accomplishments for Mr. Sullivan. Near the end of his life, Sullivan supported his good friend Nelson Mandela to raise awareness of the South African economics problems. Mr. Leon Sullivan was also a well-known author. He had 2 main books that were more known to the public, and it was Build, Brother, Build in 1969 and Moving Mountains, the Principles and Purposes of Leon Sullivan, and this was in 1998, right before he passed. Build, Brother, Build is basically all about his OIC organization, and it ends with 12 easy steps to building your own. And then his last book is Moving Mountains, and this book was basically an autobiography that told all about Leon and his life from growing up into the poor neighborhood all the way until his great accomplishments like the OIC and being on the board of General Motors. In conclusion, Sullivan was an African American who showed his passion for the Lord and for disadvantaged African Americans. His fire for civil rights began with one man telling him that he couldn't sit down at the drugstore and drink his Coca-Cola. He spent his entire life after that incident advocating against racism and discrimination against African Americans. To have known this man must have been a true honor.